Let's move on to talk fantasy basketball. This is we're going to talk winners and losers. So let's start first off on a positive note. We'll talk about the winners. Let's talk about who I think is the biggest winner in terms of fantasy basketball. And unfortunately, someone who I dropped earlier this week, Wendell Carter Jr. What are your thoughts on Wendell Carter Jr.'s and his value? Do you agree with me that he's the number one winner out of the sort of trade deadline?
Yeah, like definitely fantasy wise. He's got to be the number one. He'll be the front and center. He'll be able to run plays. His assist numbers will definitely go up. Yeah, he averaged 2 assists a game in college. He's been averaging, fuck all out in the balls, but that's the system he's been in, and they're going to run a lot of stuff through him and really kind of unlock his potential. I think the defensive end, the one main thing with Wendell is really just been health, and the best ability is availability. So
there you go.
He's if he can stay healthy, he could definitely be a huge win, fantasy wise.
Yeah. Look, he's been averaging 21 minutes in the last month as the 178th ranked player. Those minutes are going to skyrocket. He's going to be averaging over 30 minutes a night, I believe. I'm not worried about Mo Bamba. I don't think he's a good NBA player. I think that they're going to feed minutes to Wendell Carter Jr. And I can definitely see him averaging a double-double, getting close to a block a game, getting close to sort of 3 assists a game. His percentages are solid. He's an efficient, low turnover kind of player. You might even get close to sort of, nearly a steal a game. So I think he is definitely, if he's available on your waiver wire, go and grab him right now. He is rostered in 70% of leagues, so it might be hard to go and get him. But I think, he's clearly the number one guy over there in Orlando because there's no one else on this team. Like, the next best player is Terrence Ross. They've got no one else to play. So they're just going to be feeding him minutes, feeding him, shots. So I can see him having a big finish to the year. Another big player who I think, again, probably already owned, but if he is available, go and add him immediately. This could change with the buyouts if you're thinking Andre Drummond's coming, but I think Robert Williams III is the second biggest winner when it comes to fantasy. We've already seen him being putting up stats and creeping up in the minutes, but now that Daniel Tice is gone, they signed Cornette and Mo Wagner. I don't think they're challenging for minutes. I think it's Williams and Thompson who are going to get the bulk of these minutes. I think Robert Williams getting 28 minutes a night. He's a top 50 player moving forward. He's just going to get those blocks, those steals, excellent field goal percentage, rebounds, points, probably going to score over 10 points a game. So if he's available, immediately go and grab him. And I'm pretty happy because I've got him in Dynasty. What are your thoughts on the Time Lord?
I think he's probably... is Tristan Thompson out? He's been injured for a while.
He's, COVID.
That's right, COVID. So I think when he gets back, he will be put back into the starting lineup. But what they have been doing, especially with Tristan Thompson out, is they've been closing games with Robert Williams. I can see them starting with Tristan and closing with Robert Williams. So I think his minutes will be around 20 and upwards of maybe up to 25 is probably okay. So he'd still be on his per minutes. I think he is definitely a winner fantasy wise. Yeah. But when Tristan Thompson comes out, I would expect Tristan to start.
See, I don't think that. I think Robert Williams is going to run away with this starting job. I don't think he's going to give it back to Tristan Thompson. And I think, and maybe this is me being a hopeful Dynasty owner, so maybe keep my bias in check here, but I really do think that he is going to make this job his own. Tristan Thompson has got one skill, and it's rebounding, and that's it. Robert Williams is a much better defender. He's a much better playmaker. He's more athletic, and he's a better shooter. He can hit it sort of an open mid-range shot. I just think he's a better fit with some of those starting guys to provide a bit more rim protection when we don't really have anyone else there who can do that. I lean more towards that, and I think he's the future with this team. So why not get him used to being the starting center when we're probably not going to contend for a title this year. I'm really big on Robert Williams moving down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it's 1 year too early. He might start next season, but I can see Tristan. And as I said, I think Drummond could be on his way there. And if that happens, it's a whole different discussion.
Different story completely. Yeah, if Drummond does come, it's a different story completely. But for now, we're not sure Just make sure he's rostered. Just make sure he's on the roster. Figure the rest out later. And even if Drummond comes, just wait and see what happens. But yeah, make sure he's rostered right now. I've got winners here on my list here, just Orlando players, and I'm not exactly sure who it's going to be. So we're watching this space closely. I've highlighted a few names here. Terrence Ross, RJ Hampton is a bit of a funny one. Okeke is another weird one. I don't know what's going to happen with Otto Porter, Gary Harris when he comes back from injury, and Cole Anthony is another one, who's making his way back from injury soon-ish. I'll throw it over to you, Cal. Who do you think is going to be the biggest winner out of this group in terms of fantasy? Who's going to emerge with sort of good value down the stretch? Because there's a gaping hole in this team right now.
Yeah, I think it can go to a lot of different players. I think as a general note, keep your eyes on Orlando because there will be one or two that might emerge, but I think the roster will be similar to OKC where it's going to be shuffling around a fair bit. There's a world I can imagine Otto Porter gets minutes and they try and obviously just maybe try and move him in the off season and just say, Otto Porter's looking great. He's putting up these stats. So I can see that happening. So I'd probably keep him on my waiver wire. And then otherwise it could be anyone. You could flip a coin over RJ or Okeke or I don't know. I mean, Cole Anthony was kind of average with the minutes. He's been given minutes and hasn't, from a fantasy point of view, hasn't really been performing. Terrence Ross could become a number one option. Like he might already be taken in a lot of fantasy leagues, but is he the number one option now? Is he's gone for 50 before?
He has scored 50 points in a game.
Yeah.
I still think that Terrence Ross, cool. He's going to give you points. He's going to give you threes. He's the 101st ranked player at the moment, so he's only rostered in 64% of leagues, which surprises me. Great free throw percent shooter. Gets a steal a game. Not much else. So maybe he can push closer to 20 points a game. He's going to do it inefficiently, low field goal percentage. Just keep that in mind. He's going to really fuck up your field goal percentage on this team because there's no one else to take any shots away from him. So if he's out there, he's the only one that if he's available, I would add. The rest of these guys I would be watching, with the exception, and I made this move today, RJ Hampton in a dynasty league. If he's available, I would scoop him up and just see what happens. He's got a bit of fantasy upside there. We haven't seen much yet. In standard redraft leagues, I would just sort of wait and see. But he is someone I'm interested in. Otto Porter, I could see a little bit of value early, just to sort of, give it to an established player. And he's not going to win them out of a lottery pick or anything like that. So no worries there. So he could be a winner. And maybe if you've got a shit person on your bench and all the other players have been taken, you might be able to take a flyer on him and see if it works out. But it's a lot of watching and waiting at this stage to see who works out.
There's one player we mentioned previously who's not on the list just now, but Mohamed Bamba. He's worth a mention, even though I've kind of completely given up my stocks in him. If he decides to come back and start blocking shots and hitting threes, he'll be valuable. I just completely hate his game, how he's apparently set records in like agility and reach. So he's like an athletic specimen, but he decides to only want to spot up threes.
Hit threes, yeah. He's, look, if he gets minutes, he'll be an absolute fantasy beast. Like he's got, that Robert Williams kind of upside, that, Chris Boucher kind
threes,
of fantasy.
Though, it'll be like two threes, 2 blocks kind of thing.
Yeah, he'll be like a Chris Boucher sort of type, but it's if he gets the minutes, and I just don't see it. Like they've traded, obviously, Wendell Carter Jr. has been the big package that they've brought in terms of players. So I just think that he's going to get all the minutes. Maybe instead of playing 0 minutes, he plays, 12 to 16 minutes. He might get a little bit more of a backup role, but I don't think that's enough. So unless there's an injury to Wendell Carter, I don't see him being very relevant. Let's touch on a couple of Houston Rockets. So obviously Oladipo's moved. I think Jae'Sean Tate and Kevin Porter Jr. are big winners here. Kevin Porter Jr.'s fantasy value is probably more closely linked to John Wall. However, I do think that, it does benefit him regardless. There's less talent there. John Wall's going to continue to rest and potentially even get shut down the end of the season here. So I think that you're going to have some winners in Jae'Sean Tate and Kevin Porter Jr. Tate, he's not a huge usage kind of guy, so I wouldn't be expecting a lot of points, but you're going to get some trickle of rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. But but nothing too exciting there. He's good field goal percentage. And you might even want to throw in KJ in there as well. But basically it just sort of reaffirms the fact that they're going to be tanking and these young guys are going to get all the minutes there. What's the upside of those sort of players there, do you think, Cal?
Yeah, I'll just reinforce, if Kevin Porter Jr. is in your waiver wire, pick him up. He'll be running a lot of 100%. Point guard when John Wall misses games. He has been. Yep. He's been getting assists and points. He's the biggest winner. Jae'sean Tate's been getting minutes, so he's worth a bit of a flyer, sure. If he gets to maintain the minutes, he's putting up reasonable stats. He's a lot of steals. He gets the odd points, and he can hit threes. So fantasy-wise, he's not hurting you a whole lot in a lot of aspects because he can hit free throws as well. So, Kevin Porter Jr. is the biggest winner. Oladipo with him gone, it's pretty clear where this team is headed.
Oh yeah. So I think if I didn't mention this later because he's just been shit all season, but John Wall obviously is going to be impacted here. I think he's a prime shutdown candidate. So just with the direction this team is going, those two players are pretty clear winners. And if they're available, I would go and add them. Definitely either of them as well as KJ as well. So they would be adds in my opinion. Let's move over to some other players. Gary Trent Jr., another junior. So we've had Otto Porter Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., and now Gary Trent Jr., all winners. So the juniors are just winners here. What are your thoughts on Gary Trent Jr. as a winner here, mate?
He's definitely a winner. I'm pretty pissed off because I literally just dropped him. I'm regretting it. I don't know who picked him up, but and the downside is I picked up Norm Powell. This is probably a month ago now because someone dropped him. Yeah. Great ad for me because he's been tearing it up, but his stock is down. Gary's is up, and so it's definitely affected my team, which is annoying.
Look, I wouldn't get too down, Cal. I think he's had some opportunity already with CJ McCollum out, and we've seen what he's done. He's a rosterable player, but it's nothing exciting. He's going to give you points and threes. And that's basically as far as it goes. If you need a threes guy, then sure, go and grab him. He's going to get you a fair few. But outside of that, he doesn't provide much. Very minimal assists, rebounds, steals, blocks. Field goal percentage is pretty shit. So not someone who I'm super excited about. But yeah, if you need points and threes, he's your guy. You can go and add him. But not a must roster in every situation, I wouldn't think. And last little one I want to just quickly touch on, Victor Oladipo, I think is a winner just because he's probably not going to get shut down anymore and he will actually play games. Maybe his stats get hit and he won't produce as well. But if I'm an Oladipo owner, I'm just happy that he's going to play and he's not on the Houston Rockets anymore and he's going to be playing meaningful minutes down the stretch. Do you see his value taking a huge hit at Miami?
Fantasy-wise, his field goal is going to go up a fair bit, and that was hurting his stock a lot. So, and as you said, I think they will rely on him a bit more now because the Rockets are just resting, and they're putting him on display for a trade. So it's locked in. He knows where he's going to be. We've spoken about it before. He's a perfect fit for the Heat culture that's out there. So,
how many Heat cultures is that? Is that 4? How many times we mentioned
5? Surely.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good fit. He's obviously his points will go down, but his field goal will go up. So it might be a bit of an average.
Yeah, I think statistically, he'll balance himself out, but just the availability, like you said, availability is the best ability. So you got to be happy with that.